Evan Marlowe and Serena Kwan appeared to be living separate, ordinary lives until a secret affair, hidden recordings, and a threat to destroy everything pushed them into a deadly collision that neither of them could escape. Evan Marlowe stepped into Singapore with the intention of building a temporary life, not realizing how quickly everything around him would shift. His new work contract was meant to last only a few months, and he planned to spend most of his time focusing on his digital consulting projects. In the evenings, he explored quiet cafes, ordered the same meals, and stayed mostly unnoticed in the lively city. It was during one of these casual evenings that he saw Serena Kwan for the first time. She was a well-known fitness model whose presence was impossible to ignore. People around her recognized her immediately, admiring her toned physique and calm confidence. Evan had never imagined himself crossing paths with someone like her. Serena's online fame came from her workout routines, lifestyle tips, and signature clean look. She represented discipline and self-control, but privately she craved genuine connection. She noticed Evan's quiet nature when they first met and found it refreshing. Their interaction grew gradually until it turned into a connection neither of them expected. Evan felt a deep pull towards Serena's intensity. Serena, on the other hand, felt appreciated in a way she had not experienced in years. Their relationship formed in hidden corners of the city. They kept it secret because Serena feared damaging her public image, and Evan feared mixing his personal life with his temporary job. What started as simple attraction soon turned into something far more complicated. Behind closed doors, they felt safe, free from judgment, and free from cameras. In those private moments, they recorded intimate videos together, believing that their trust was strong and unbreakable. The videos were meant to be symbols of passion, not weapons. But trust built too quickly can collapse just as fast. Evan eventually finished his contract and returned to the United States, leaving Serena behind in Singapore with a mix of longing and insecurity. At first, they communicated regularly. Evan promised to stay in touch, while Serena did everything to remain close despite the distance. The time difference and their separate routines began to chip away at what they had created. Evan got consumed by work, and Serena felt herself slipping down his priority list. Days without replies became normal. Serena's frustration grew into fear, and that fear transformed into anger. Serena felt abandoned, and her loneliness sharpened her emotions. She revisited the videos they had recorded and saw them differently now. They were proof of vulnerability, and she knew Evan feared them falling into the wrong hands. Over time, she began reminding him of the existence of those recordings. The tone of her messages shifted from emotional to threatening. Evan sensed that Serena was losing control emotionally, and every message from her brought a wave of anxiety. Evan tried to bury himself in work to forget the situation, but the fear of those videos going public followed him everywhere. His coworkers noticed his distraction, but he kept the truth hidden. The thought of his family, colleagues, and friends discovering the videos left him sleepless. Serena's influence reached him even across oceans. He started waking up at night, covered in sweat, checking his phone constantly. Afraid that the videos had been uploaded, Serena demanded more attention and blamed him for leaving her behind. She became unpredictable, threatening exposure whenever she felt ignored. Evan felt trapped in a cycle he did not know how to break. Instead of fading with distance, their connection was turning into a psychological cage. The videos they once created with passion had become delicate triggers that could destroy his entire life. By the end of the first month after his return home, Evan realized that the emotional balance between him and Serena had collapsed. She was no longer the confident fitness model he had yet become someone driven by fear of loss, while he had become someone driven by fear of exposure. Their once secret affair had taken a darker turn, setting the stage for a tragedy neither of them could see coming. Evan's life in the United States slowly crumbled under the weight of Serena's threats. Every morning began with anxious checking of his phone, scanning for uploads, warnings, or messages. His hands shook whenever her name appeared on the screen. What once felt exciting now felt like a countdown toward disaster. He tried ignoring her messages, hoping she would lose interest or calm down. But Serena responded with more intensity each time she felt pushed aside. Her emotional state became unpredictable, and Evan found himself anticipating the worst at all times. At work, Evan struggled to maintain focus. His deadlines slipped, and his team noticed the change. Caleb Miles, who sat near him, watched him spiral from a confident worker into a distracted shadow of himself. Evan's usual polite behavior was replaced by silent panic. He stared at his computer screen without typing, jumped at small noises, and constantly excused himself to take private calls. Caleb tried to check on him casually, but Evan brushed him off, afraid that even the smallest detail could expose his secret. Meanwhile, Serena's frustration reached new extremes. Each unanswered message from Evan sharpened her anger. She felt betrayed, convinced that she had been used and discarded. Her emotions twisted into a desire to make Evan feel the same pain she felt. He began sending longer messages filled with resentment, warning him that she was running out of patience. She wanted him in Singapore again, not as a visitor, but as someone who owed her loyalty and commitment. Evan, overwhelmed and terrified, considered various ways to handle this situation. He thought about confessing everything to his family, but the shame of exposing the videos held him back. He thought about reporting Serena to the authorities, but he feared the recordings would become evidence and go public anyway. Every possible solution seemed worse than the problem itself. Serena had control because she held the one thing he desperately needed to hide. The tension between them grew worse when Serena hinted that she had saved backup copies. Evan realized that even if she deleted one set, she still had others stored somewhere he couldn't reach. This realization pushed him into a deeper level of paranoia. He replayed worst-case scenarios in his mind: videos appearing on social media, coworkers discovering them, his employers questioning his professionalism, his family losing trust in him. The imagined humiliation felt unbearable. One sleepless night, Evan reached a breaking point. He stared at his ceiling, unable to stop thinking about the videos and Serena's threats. The fear became too heavy to ignore. Early the next morning, he booked a last-minute flight to Singapore. He convinced himself that seeing Serena face-to-face might calm her emotions. He believed he could reason with her, regain control of the situation, and convince her to delete the files. It felt like the only way to save himself. When Evan arrived in Singapore, the tropical heat hit him like a warning. The city felt different. From his first stay, familiar yet filled with tension. He checked into a small hotel not far from Serena's apartment, unsure of how long he would need to stay. His mind raced with plans and worries, each one darker than the last. Serena lived in a high-end tower with a clean, modern interior that she often showcased online. Her apartment projected success and stability, but inside she had been collapsing for weeks. When she saw Evan return, her emotions surged in unpredictable directions. The reunion did not have the calmness Evan hoped for. Instead, it became a quiet battlefield where fear, anger, and mistrust blended together. Evan noticed multiple electronic devices in Serena's home: phones, tablets, external drives, and a laptop. He became increasingly nervous. Each device felt like a trap holding his future hostage. Serena refused to let him near them, and her behavior only deepened his suspicion that the videos were stored in more than one place. Days passed with rising tension. Evan's fear grew heavier, Serena's anger grew sharper, and the small apartment became a pressure chamber ready to burst. The emotional distance between them turned into a silent war, pushing Evan closer to a decision he never imagined making. The thought of losing everything tormented him every minute. With no peaceful solution in sight, a dark idea began to settle in his mind. An idea born from panic, exhaustion, and the feeling of being hunted. The night that changed everything arrived without warning, yet it felt as if it had been building for weeks. Evan spent the entire day pacing inside his hotel room, replaying Serena's threats in his mind until his thoughts spiraled into something unrecognizable. He felt trapped inside a loop of fear, imagining every possible way his life could collapse if those videos were released. As the evening approached, the sense of urgency consumed him. His heart raced with a pounding force that made it hard to think clearly. He convinced himself that he had run out of time and that Serena would expose everything the moment she felt ignored. Again, the warm Singapore air wrapped around him as he walked towards Serena's apartment. The city lights blurred in his vision, and every passing car made him flinch. His mind kept repeating the same thought. Once he stepped inside her home, something irreversible would happen. Yet he still continued walking, driven by a desperate mix of fear and survival instinct. When he reached the building, he moved through the hallways with trembling hands, feeling as if he were walking toward his own fate. Inside Serena's apartment, the atmosphere felt heavy from the moment he stepped inside. The blinds were slightly open, allowing a thin strip of city light to stretch across the floor. Serena moved around the apartment with restless energy, her emotions shifting rapidly. Evan felt the tension tightening like a rope being pulled at both ends. He noticed the same devices scattered across the table and shelves: her phone, laptop, external storage drives. They looked harmless. Yet to him, they represented destruction waiting to happen. The argument that had been silently building between them erupted through actions rather than words. Serena attempted to guard her devices, sensing that Evan wanted access to them. Evan followed her movements with frantic eyes, feeling completely cornered. Each step she took made him more desperate, more convinced that she would expose him. The moment he left the apartment, the fear that had haunted him for weeks finally overwhelmed whatever rationality he had left. As the tension reached its highest point, Serena tried to pull away from him, and a violent struggle broke out. Evan grabbed her arms in panic, trying to stop her from reaching her phone. The struggle escalated quickly, neither of them preparing for how far it would go. Their movements crashed into furniture, filling the apartment with sharp sounds that echoed off the clean walls. Evan's mind blurred, losing track of the moment when fear shifted into brute force. Serena tried to break free, but Evan held on tightly, thinking only about the videos and his ruined future. In the chaos, Evan overpowered her. It happened faster than he could process. When she finally went still, the apartment fell into a suffocating silence. Evan stepped back, frozen in shock. Serena lay motionless on the floor, the life gone from her body, and the reality of what he had done slowly pressed against him, like crushing weight. His breath came in broken gasps as he stared at her, unable to believe how quickly fear had led him to this irreversible moment. Panic took over as he rushed around the apartment, searching for every device that could hold the videos. He grabbed her phone first, smashing it against the floor until it cracked. Then he tore through drawers, shelves, and bags, destroying anything that looked like a storage device. He broke her laptop, shattered the screens of old tablets, and tossed damaged pieces into the trash. His frantic actions left the apartment in ruins, but he felt no relief. He only felt more terrified. In his panic, he acted without precision. He destroyed devices, but failed to check thoroughly. A small storage doctor remained hidden beneath Serena's workout equipment, untouched and holding the very files he feared most. Evan never noticed it. He was too overwhelmed by the chaos he had created. When he finally stopped moving, he looked around at the wreckage. His hands were shaking, his thoughts scattered, and Serena's body lay where he had left it. He tried to steady his breathing as he attempted to clean the scene, wiping surfaces and adjusting objects to disguise the struggle, but the scene was too chaotic, and his attempts only created more inconsistencies. By the time he left the apartment, Evan felt as though he were stepping outside of himself. The night air struck him like a slap, reminding him that he had crossed a line that could never be undone. He walked through the quiet streets with trembling legs, carrying the weight of a crime he had never imagined committing. The darkness around him felt suffocating, and every step deepened his fear, knowing that this was only the beginning of the consequences to come. The news of Serena Kwan's sudden silence spread faster than anyone expected. She was a public figure, whose online presence was consistent, polished, and active every single day. When 24 hours passed without a post, her followers grew suspicious. When 48 hours passed, her closest friends began to worry. Many had noticed her emotional instability in recent weeks, though none knew the full story. A neighbor in her apartment building reported hearing strange noises the night before, and soon the authorities were alerted to check on her. The moment investigators entered Serena's apartment, they sensed something was wrong. The atmosphere inside felt unsettling, as though the room carried the imprint of the chaos that had taken place. Items were scattered in unnatural positions, furniture was slightly disturbed, and several broken electronics lay in pieces around the living space. Detective Rhea Linton, known for her calm intelligence, surveyed the room with steady eyes. She took note of the shattered screens, the overturned equipment, and the subtle signs that pointed toward a struggle. Nothing about the scene appeared peaceful or accidental. When officers found Serena's lifeless body, the temperature in the room seemed to drop. The placement of her limbs, the bruises on her skin, and the tension in her neck muscles told a story without needing words. The scene was far too violent to be mistaken for a natural death. Within minutes, the apartment was sealed as a potential homicide investigation. Forensic teams entered, documenting every detail, measuring angles, photographing injuries, and collecting fragments left behind. Dr. Talia Wren conducted the forensic examination, and her findings eliminated any doubt. Serena's death was the result of force. The marks on her body matched the patterns of a physical struggle. Her breathing had been restricted, leaving clear evidence that someone had overpowered her. Dr. Talia analyzed the condition of her muscles, the pressure marks on her skin, and the time of death. Building a precise timeline that investigators used to narrow down suspects, Detective Rhea Linton focused on motive. Serena's reputation as a fitness model brought attention, but her personal life had remained mysterious for years. Rhea dug into Serena's recent messages, calls, and interactions. Patterns quickly emerged. There were repeated contacts with one named Evan Marlowe. The deleted messages, the sudden tension, and the emotional tone in Serena's last online notes hinted at a troubled relationship. When Rhea discovered that Evan had arrived in Singapore shortly before Serena's death, her suspicions sharpened. Surveillance footage from the apartment complex strengthened the case. Cameras showed Evan entering the building on the night of the incident and leaving hours later, looking distressed and moving quickly. His behavior did not match that of an innocent visitor. Neighbors reported hearing movement and thuds around the same time he was present. Every new detail tightened the net around him. Inside the apartment, forensic teams uncovered another crucial clue: a small storage drive hidden beneath Serena's workout equipment. Unlike the shattered devices scattered around the room, this one remained intact. When investigators examined its contents, they found videos and recordings Serena had stored. Among them were personal messages she had recorded for herself, expressing fear and frustration about Evan's reactions in the days before her death. She documented her concerns, her anger, and her belief that Evan might do something drastic. If pushed further, although the drive did not contain direct proof of intent, it established a clear motive and emotional context. As investigators pieced together the evidence, Evan attempted to escape Singapore, hoping to return to the United States before anyone could question him. He moved quickly, buying the earliest ticket he could find. But authorities were already ahead of him. His name had been flagged in the system once the forensic team connected the timeline. Immigration officers detained him at the airport as he tried to board a flight. Evan's expression when confronted confirmed what investigators suspected. He looked exhausted, frightened, and overwhelmed, as though weeks of fear had drained every ounce of strength. Detective Rhea Linton oversaw his arrest, watching him carefully as officers placed him in custody. She sensed that his actions were driven by panic rather than planning. But the result remained the same: a young woman was dead, and he was responsible. Back at the crime scene, the apartment remained frozen in its chaotic state, serving as a silent witness to the final hours of Serena Kwan's life. The investigation moved forward with certainty. The pieces of evidence formed a complete picture, leaving no room for doubt. Serena's death had been the tragic result of fear, obsession, and a desperate attempt to hide a secret. The case was now ready for court, and the world was about to learn the full story. Evan Marlowe's trial became one of the most followed international cases of the year. The murder of a Singaporean fitness figure by an American man drew massive media attention. News reporters from both countries filled the courtroom seats, each day, documenting every shift in his expression and every detail presented by the prosecution. The public watched the case unfold like a dark documentary in real time, eager to understand how a private relationship had transformed into a deadly chain of events. Evan sat in the defendant's chair with a hollow expression. The sleepless nights, the constant interrogations, and the guilt of his actions had drained him completely. His lawyer, Adrian Cole, crafted a defense based on emotional breakdown and overwhelming fear, hoping to reduce his sentence. Adrian explained that Evan had not traveled to Singapore with the intention to commit violence, but desperation had driven him into a mental collapse. He painted Evan as a man pushed into a psychological corner, unable to make rational decisions. But the prosecution built a case far stronger. Lead prosecutor, Narelle Chong, presented a timeline that left no gaps. She walked the court through Serena's final moments, using forensic analysis, surveillance footage, and expert testimony. Every piece of evidence pointed toward a violent confrontation. The broken electronics in the apartment proved that Evan had attempted to erase or destroy the videos. The bruises on Serena's body showed clear signs of force, and the untouched storage drive revealed Evan's true motive. Narelle argued that fear did not excuse fatal actions, especially when those actions involved restraining, overpowering, and ultimately taking a life. Serena's family attended every session in silence. Her mother, Claudia Kwan, sat in the front row with a stillness that was more painful than tears. She kept her eyes fixed on the prosecution's display, refusing to look at Evan. Her presence alone added weight to the atmosphere. Physically, she remained composed, but the grief in her posture showed the depth of her loss. Serena's father, Gareth, kept his hands tightly clasped, battling his emotions with every testimony. Their quiet pain influenced the jury more strongly than words ever could. Forensic pathologist Dr. Talia Ren detailed the injuries that Serena suffered. She explained how the marks on her body aligned perfectly with the physical struggle. She described the pressure points that indicated deliberate force. Her neutral, scientific tone made the truth even more difficult to hear. Each detail reinforced that Serena's death had not been accidental or spontaneous. It was the result of deliberate actions fueled by panic and fear. Detective Rhea Linton presented the hidden storage drive to the jury. She explained how it had been found beneath Serena's equipment and how it contained crucial recordings. These recordings revealed Serena's emotional state in the days leading up to her death. She expressed feeling threatened, overwhelmed, and afraid of what Evan might do. Her final entries formed a haunting picture of a woman reaching her breaking point while trying to protect herself from emotional damage. When the recordings were summarized in court, the room fell silent. The jury absorbed every detail, each member processing the weight of Serena's words. Evan's testimony did little to help his case. He spoke with strained emotion, explaining that he had panicked, that he only wanted to stop Serena from exposing the videos, and that he never intended to kill her. But his trembling voice and scattered explanations failed to outweigh the physical. Evanescence's version of the events sounded unstable, shaped by fear rather than truth. The prosecution emphasized that intention did not erase responsibility. After weeks of hearings, both sides delivered their final statements. The courtroom held its breath as the jury deliberated. Hours passed before they returned. Evan sat motionless, his eyes fixed on the floor. When the verdict was read guilty of murder, his body seemed to collapse inward. The room filled with quiet reactions. Serena's family held each other. Reporters hurried to send updates, and spectators whispered in disbelief. The judge delivered a lengthy sentence, ensuring Evan would spend decades in a Singaporean prison. His life, once filled with opportunity and travel, had narrowed to a future behind concrete walls. As he was led away in handcuffs, he took one final look at the courtroom. Knowing that a single mistake, driven by fear, had destroyed 2 lives, Serena's memory lived on through her followers, her family, and the millions who learned her story. Her vibrant presence was replaced by cautionary lessons about trust, secrets, and the dangers of emotional instability. Evan's downfall became a reminder of what panic, obsession, and desperation can lead to when left unchecked. The case closed, but the consequences lingered long after the courtroom emptied. The tragedy of Serena Kwan and Evan Marlowe became another dark chapter in the world of true crime, leaving behind a trail of sadness, shock, and unanswered questions about how 2 people once connected by affection ended up trapped in a fatal spiral.